Well, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. So, you might say, why is some doctor here? Some MD doctor, unlike you official scientists, many of whom I see in the room and have been partners with. Really, I'm just a baby doctor. But I'm a baby doctor who's had the privilege of being at the intersection of two of what I think are the most exciting developments in my field in a long time. I had the privilege, I'm a fetal surgeon. I operate on babies before birth in the womb. It's actually not that new, even though it sounds pretty amazing. It's been going on for 30 years. And to take a line out of your playbook, just saying, UCSF thinks they invented it, but it really all happened here at UC Davis. Just saying, I was from UCSF, so I can say it. But it's true. The work was done by UCSF docs at the time, but at the large animal facility here in the Primate Center. Without that, it never would have happened. Most people don't know that story. But so I had the privilege of being at the start of just a pup in the early days of fetal surgery at UCSF. But I've also had the privilege of being now at the crossroads of taking fetal surgery and combining it with tissue engineering and really stem cell engineering. What brought me here from San Francisco, even farther than across the causeway, just saying, was the combination of that large animal facility that is an outgrowth of our fantastic veterinary school, and the fact that Jan's a little modest, if you haven't noticed that about her. The only GMP facility in Northern California at that time, and that one of only two in the whole state. We're a pretty big state. So little old Davis had our amazing GMP facility that has allowed so many of these things to happen. So I want you to think a minute. That's a fetus. And think about your grandparents having a baby. The fetus was shrouded in this veil of mystery. What did your grandparents talk about doing when a baby was born? Sort of counting the fingers and toes and making sure that everything was okay? Then along came an amazing disruptive technology, ultrasound. And all of a sudden, we could see inside. And oh my gosh, we saw all kinds of things going on in there. So we had to study the natural history of some of those things, because some of them went away. I mean, it was amazing. For the first time, we could see into the fetus. So as a pediatric surgeon who fixed problems after birth, we started to ask the question, well, we can fix the hole, it's what surgeons can do. We can cut and paste. But we couldn't necessarily change the pathophysiology that had already occurred. The problem happened before birth. So we started to just ask a simple question, very simple question. If we fixed it before birth, would that be better for the outcome than after birth? In the early days of fetal surgery, it was all fetal defects because we had to balance. So here's a mom who has an operation for no benefit to herself, so undergoes all that risk. A little bit like transplantation, where you donate a kidney to somebody else. So it was similar. We had to balance the risk to her against the risk, the potential advantage to the fetus. So to balance that in the early days, we only addressed fetal defects. So things that meant there'd either be in utero demise or the fetus wouldn't survive at birth. So along came, we learned that we could now actually do it pretty safely. A lot of it we learned at the Primate Center here. That's another whole story. But 10 or 20 years went by and we realized we could take care of these women quite safely, and we now treat tumors before birth, twins where one twin steals the other twin's blood supply, all kinds of things. It's amazing. So it's not quite so scary to get a diagnosis. There's things we can do. And right now, I'm involved in what we call the CURE trial, because we like Jan's approach to curing everything. So cellular in utero therapy, CURE, for spina bifida. That's the work some of you have heard about now. We have been excited to actually get FDA approval to take human placental-derived cells, put them into a fetus, first in human studies, all developed here at UC Davis, manufactured in Jan's GMP facility, animal pre-investigative work done here at UC Davis, and we've now treated our first 3 patients. While it's only a safety study, and we're only publicly reporting as a scientist those safety results, and I'm proud to say that we've passed our first safety trial, we're a little okay with the fact that the parents are all over social media. It kind of changes science now about how happy are that these kids that they thought would be paralyzed, these babies are wiggling their toes. So it is amazing. It may be a cure. I'm enough of a scientist. We're going to wait to get the rigorous data in a few more years, but in the meantime, we're going to let social media do its thing, as long as it's on our side. But I want you to imagine, what if, that's just one example, what if we could treat every potential disease that a baby might get before birth? What if we could cure sickle cell disease with just a little gene therapy and change that one gene that's responsible for that? Cystic fibrosis, tissue engineering for body parts that are missing. What if we could do all of that? And what if we could even tackle the fetal origins of adult disease? There's a lot of evidence that hypertension, that obesity, that many of the chronic diseases we have actually have fetal origins. And there's an intersection with our ag school and some of the exposures that we get from our environment. What if we could figure that out and cure all those diseases? Think of the money it would save taxpayers. Think of the lives it would save. Think of the families whose lives would be transformed, not having to all the additional support that goes into these patients. What if we could do fetal gene therapy, fetal tissue engineering, fetal tolerance? If you knew you were going to need a transplant in the future, you could just set it up so that you wouldn't need immunosuppression. Fetal origins of adult disease, as I mentioned. This is not crazy. And half of those things I just mentioned are already done. And you are laughing at me because you think I'm crazy. I want you to know you're not the first. Nor probably will you be the last. People do think I'm a little overenthusiastic sometimes. Just saying. But that's not it. That's not all. So as a fetal surgeon, I was always amazed at the placenta, which everyone ignored and just threw away, right? This here is this most amazing organ, if you will. It doesn't even get credit for being an organ. Although they do make a stuffed animal, they make organ stuffed things. They do make a stuffed placenta. So I feel like I've made the organ list. I feel a little bit like Pluto. Now I realize there's an astronaut in the room. It's making me nervous now. I got another astronaut story coming. All right. Whew. Yeah, nobody competes with me with the placenta, although that's not true, actually. There's more competition of people studying the placenta now, and I like to think if I make no other contribution to science, it might be that I got people to study the placenta, because it is amazing. In 9 months, it becomes from nothing to an organ that makes blood vessels that are bigger than my fingers. It protects the fetus from being rejected by the mother, so it's an amazing immune organ in its own right. It's an endocrine organ. It provides all the nutrients, and it figures out how to do that, and it supports that growing fetus. And then it becomes senescent. Then it just stops. So I want all my vascular scientists to study the placenta. I want everybody who's interested in aging to study the placenta, because Aijin and I, my scientific partner out there, we do not have time to do it all. So please get studying the placenta. But imagine if we could really understand those things that the placenta can teach us And imagine if we could really understand all that amazing biology that makes fingers and eyeballs and fingernails and hair and hearts and bones that happens in a developing fetus. So really understanding developmental biology, having it be more than a descriptive study, would give us profound insight into ways we could help improve human health, solve problems. I think there's no more exciting time to be a scientist, and I don't think these things are crazy in terms of trying to solve them. It requires our academic medical centers, and even better, academic medical centers that are part of a bigger university. Just saying, poor UCSF's just out there by itself. The interdisciplinary work that can be done with our egg school. I want to grow organs in our egg school for transplant. I want to talk to our pig people so we can figure this out. It's already being done, but Davis should be leading that. I know that sounds scary to some of our veterinary colleagues, but face it, unless you're a vegetarian, which, by the way, is not a bad idea, many animals serve important needs for humans, so I'll just stop with that. But are you all aware of the DART project? This is where I get back to my hands up. Almost everybody. Okay, so I don't really understand. My husband was an astrophysicist by training before he switched into medicine, but I think of this as somebody basically sat in their backyard, shot a BB gun to a place where the moon was going to be 5 years from now, and hit a Coke can on the moon. I mean, that's the only way I can figure out. I mean, how crazy is that you could shoot a little tiny thing and hit a Coke can on the moon where the moon was going to be 5 years from now? But I think that's what they just did. So if they can do that, I don't think there's any problem in solving all the diseases before birth. Thanks, you guys.